Hello and welcome to the 7th episode of the Real List Podcast, a podcast about our real list. I'm your host, Ellis.
And I'm your host, Gloria.
And today we have a selection from...
Me!
You're really excited to do this one, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah,
This is a part of my childhood. Of course I'm excited to do this.
And I believe it was a part of my childhood too, but it's a part that I distinctly forgot. And we came back to this, and I recognized a bunch of stuff. I finally understood a bunch of references people were making. But before I say anything more, you can go ahead and tell the audience what we're looking at here.
We are doing Disney's American Legends, which is unrelated to the fact of that I thought it was just called John Henry.
Well, some of it is.
I mean, yeah, but I just thought that it was just a movie about John Henry. I didn't know it was called Disney's American Legends, because I thought distinctively that Paul Bunyan and John Henry were just two separate movies that I watched, not all one collided together. But this movie came out in 2001. It's a bunch of shorts narrated by the one and the only James Earl Jones. You may know him as Mufasa or Darth Vader.
Darth Vader.
Or Darth Vader, yeah. And basically it tells the story of John Henry, Paul Bunyan, Johnny Appleseed, and Casey Jones.
Yeah. Which, Casey Jones being the one that... I recognized a bunch of references that people in the Iron Horsemen were making that, you know, sort of rang a little bell way in the back of my head, but I didn't know where they came from. I was like,
seeing this.
Yeah, exactly.
You're like, oh, I know what they're talking about.
Yeah, it was a revelation. It's like, oh, that's right. And you bring up that, you recognize them as the individual pieces, which is fair, because they came out in 2001 as this sort of
movie.
This anthology. It's them all packed together like Buster Scruggs, which, by the way, we need to do an episode on Buster Scruggs at some
I have
point.
to watch it again.
Yeah. Because, boy, do I have questions about that. But not to get too far off track, the shorts were released at different times. I mean, you have Johnny Appleseed being from 1948. That's the oldest of the four. The Casey Jones segment called The Brave Engineer is in 1950. Paul Bunyan's 58. And then I believe John Henry came out, it did come out separately. It came out in 2000, and then this came out in 2001.
Yeah, so they must have compiled them all together to put them onto one disc.
Yeah, and we could buy John Henry separately, right? It was up there on Amazon.
On YouTube for $10. Just the short, because it's just 10 minutes long. But,
I think the important question here, if we want to get into the discussion, is what was your favorite? We also haven't star rated this yet, so this is going to be live star rating. But, we got to be passing the questions back and forth. We got to talk about more than just what goes on in here.
So, the thing is, with this right here, John Henry has always been my favorite. But Paul Bunyan is my second favorite one, because I remember them the most vividly in my head. I remember Paul Bunyan with Babe and John Henry working on the railroad and everything, with him battling the train, the train.
Yeah, the machine, the whatever you want to call it, machine, the Omni machine, because apparently it can lay track and hammer spikes and also dig a tunnel. It's the kind of thing where it's kind of funny that. Well, I guess it is focused on it as sort of an antagonist, but it's one of those, like Jaws, you never see the whole thing. Mm-hmm. You always see, a little corner of it or whatever, because it's supposed to be this massive, imposing machine that scares the crap out of all the workers because it's going to take their jobs. Not unlike Marty down at the supermarket, who should be destroyed. But it is a villain.
Listen. You need to stop, because Marty's not going to do anything.
No, we need to have the John Henry of Stop and Shop to take down the robot.
Oh my lord!
I also agree with you that John Henry's probably the best one. I like it the best. I mean, it is also the newest, but
yes, it is also the newest. But what was your favorite one besides Casey Jones and Foamer.
You see, okay, shut up. First of all, second of all, Casey Jones. Oh, be quiet. Casey Jones was kind of not my favorite one because, yeah, it's a great little kid's tale, but
Funny.
I don't know the story of the rest of these guys. Like, I know of John Henry, I know of Johnny Appleseed. Paul Bunyan is a legendary figure. These all are, obviously. It's the name of the compilation. But knowing Casey Jones
Stop.
and like who he was and what he did totally takes the wind out of the brave engineer bit. It's like, well, this is nothing like him. It's not. It's a completely sensationalized version. I get that's the point, but I get why it's called the Brave Engineer and not just Casey Jones, because it is totally like above and beyond in terms of ridiculousness. I think it's also probably the most like it's the most comedic of the four shorts. Definitely.
Yeah, it is.
I don't. Maybe the thing that puts me off is that I don't feel like it's handled with enough gravitas because you probably don't know the actual story, but the short version is he was kind of a speed demon and he crashed into the back of a train that was sticking out from the siding and got himself killed.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, so and there's more to it than that, obviously, but that is the short version. And I really thought that it was going to end, given this tragic ending of like he crashes into the train that's coming at him in the little short, and oh, that's the end of Casey Jones. That's why you aren't reckless like Casey Jones. But no, everything works out for him. He shows up at the station in like his blown up engine, and he still has the express mail and whatever. And I just sort of went like, okay, like that's a way to do it, I guess. Everyone else gets their, well, Paul Bunyan, goes off into the wilderness, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he gets like the most medium ending. Johnny Appleseed gets his happy ending because he gets to like plant apple trees in heaven.
Mm-hmm.
His angel comes to him and takes him away, and then
John Henry loses his life digging that tunnel, trying to beat the machine so everybody can get the land that they deserved.
yeah, and he gets his victory, but he has his tragic ending. And that's interesting because it's a happy ending despite the fact that he dies in the end.
Yes.
He did the thing, he made the hero's sacrifice. He got his happy ending, sort of, but he didn't personally have a happy ending.
No, but like you can see that his wife and his son in the afterwards, and they're like together, and they're like, and then she was like, whenever you hear a crack of thunder, just know that's your dad up there.
Yeah, and that's great. That is a fun little tie-in because it's framed as a story within a story in the anthology because it's James Earl Jones going, and here's the story of John Henry, and then it cuts to John Henry's wife or widow, I suppose, telling their son about him. So it's a story within a story, which is always fun. I can't wait to do a Grand Budapest Hotel episode because it's like 6 layers deep. That film is like 6 layers deep. It's Inception, but not.
I wanted to talk about how the John Henry was animated for a second. I love how like you could still see the pencil markings when they moved, and the certain ways that like the body moved, and like when they see the Omni machine to come challenge, the Omni machine is slick and clean, and there's no like hiccups on it. And then like with all the people, you can see the outlines and like the motions of the lines, and they're moving. And I just like I was like I like that. Like it's something that you normally don't see. So I'm just like sitting here to myself thinking, and I'm like, you don't see a lot of animation like that, especially like in like nowadays.
No, because it's purposefully rough. Like you get to see all the sketches, like you were saying, and all of that stuff is usually, omitted by the time it becomes a final product. So clearly, it had to be in. Why do you do this to me? Clearly, it had to be an intentional choice to leave it as sort of rough animation.
Yeah.
Now, part of that may have been to fit in with the other stories, because despite the fact that the technique for a 2D animation hasn't changed a ton, if you're doing it by hand anyway, there are tons of tools in the modern era Like, that is a 62-year gap between the release of Paul Bunyan, which is the second newest, and
Mm-hmm.
the release of John Henry. So, or sorry, 62? 42. 42-year gap. Uh, that makes a huge difference, and so I can't help but feel like in order to make it fit more, it was done with this intentional roughness.
No,
Because,
I'm not complaining about it. I'm just saying I love the way that they portrayed it. Like,
no, I know you're not complaining. I'm just trying to add to what you're saying. I agree. I thought it was pretty cool. Um, it it didn't take away from it. It didn't make it feel like it was cheap or underdone or incomplete or anything. It just, I don't know, it gave a sort of character to the animation that I
mm-hmm.
think has to be there to sort of date it almost, even though that those kind of artifacts were not present in the older uh, shorts.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and just to come back to it for a second, and I do wanted to just tie back to this because now we've talked about the animation and everything, and we've gushed about uh, what's his name now? John Henry. Sorry, I don't know why it escaped me. Actually, I wanted to say that the reason that we end up watching this now is because Fomer. We saw the HO scale John Henry that someone had at the Big E. John Henry, Jawn Henry, being a steam turbine built by the Norfolk and Western. Very, very cool locomotive. Look it up. But yeah, we were walking around the Big E, and somebody had said to me that there was a John Henry. I pointed that out to Gloria, and Gloria goes, "Oh, we should watch John Henry when we get home." And then it turned into this thing like, oh, do we watch the 10-minute one because it's on the list, or do we pay the extra $2 or whatever and get the full American Legends hour-long? Because I felt like, and we eventually decided on this because there's a lot more content here to make an episode out of.
Mm-hmm. Instead of one historical figure, you're going to get 3. You're going to get multiple.
5 if you include Babe. If you include the Ox as a separate historical figure. 6 if you include the Omni Droid. Oh wait, that was from Incredibles. Omni Machine. Omni Man?
Not Omni
J.
Man.
Jonah Jameson?
No. But,
I want to see pictures of John Henry.
But yes, that was the whole reason we started watching this.
I wanted to talk... sorry.
I wanted to move on to the next historical figure. I wanted to go to Paul Bunyan.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to ask about Johnny Appleseed. But yeah, let's talk about Paul Bunyan. Appleseed! He grew those trees real fast.
He did. So what did you think of the story behind Paul Bunyan? Like him washing ashore and all the townspeople doing all this work just to take care of this ginormous baby.
Aside from Casey Jones, Paul Bunyan is the one that I was most familiar with. I feel like I must have had a book on Paul Bunyan when I was really little.
Who hasn't had a book on Paul Bunyan?
Okay, but I'm just saying, it's not something I've found in my boxes of books downstairs, but I feel like it's something I probably had and probably read at least a few times when I was growing up, because it is one of the ones that stuck in my head. It's like, oh yeah, Paul Bunyan. I remember Paul Bunyan. He has a big blue ox and he cuts down trees and whatever. Now, obviously, it was a very rudimentary understanding of who Paul Bunyan is, and they add a bunch more details for the short. I actually was thoroughly entertained by the origin story of the whole town pitching in to raise this giant baby.
Big baby.
Yeah, and it takes the phrase "it takes a village to raise a child" to a whole new level.
Yes, it does.
And him going to school and everything, and his sort of journey across the country and causing all sorts of things, like causing the lakes and whatever. Which, it's funny, we just talked about the tragic ending of John Henry, because arguably, while John Henry dies, he still gets his happy ending. Mm-hmm. He has his victory and then dies. I would argue that a happy ending is when the hero has nothing else to worry about. And by that measure, John Henry absolutely gets a happy ending.
Yes, he does. I wasn't saying that he doesn't.
No, I know. It's just a debate. It's like, oh, if he dies, he clearly doesn't get a happy ending. I'm trying to push my idea of what a happy ending is. Because I had like an existential crisis a while ago as to what does a happy ending mean. I'm invoking a segment here. I'm invoking the what is a happy ending segment. I wrote this one down. Meanwhile, Paul Bunyan is the only one of these four who I would say does not get a happy ending. Because he loses against the machine.
Yes, but at the same time, Paul Bunyan realized, like, so what he can still do what he loves to do and be with Babe and take care of people, like...
Yeah, I mean, he's still happy, and I guess by my own measure, that's a happy ending, but he still loses his final battle. I mean, he gets the real winner is the real victory is the friends we made along the way sort of thing, which is atrocious, but he...
No way.
It's true, though. I mean, you pick the friends you made along the way or One-Eyed Willie's rich stuff. I guess they all picked the friends. But whatever. Well, no, they got to keep the boat at the end of the Goonies. Didn't they? We need to watch the Goonies. Is that on the list?
I don't know.
Have you seen the Goonies?
Of course I've seen the Goonies.
Oh, thank God. Okay, well, it doesn't need to be, but then, because this is just us showing each other things. But, like, you take the money. You can make new friends. So that's a very cynical thing for me to say. But, in seriousness, no, it's... he did go off to live his, I guess, eternal life. I don't know.
I'm guessing Paul Bunyan's immortal. I don't know. He's a giant man with a big blue ox. But,
Well, he grew up.
I mean, he did grow up, so, I mean, he's obviously had to have died.
I mean, I would assume so. It just would seem weird that the lifespan of a giant, assuming these are like... Well, okay, that's another important question. What is Paul Bunyan?
I think because it's folklore.
He's just a giant dude? But, like, we need to attribute that to something, because there's no established existence of giant people in the world of Paul Bunyan.
Well, I don't think it's, like, he's a giant person. Like, I don't think he's, like, a giant, like, an actual giant.
Is that a human?
Yeah.
He's something else? He's, like, a race. He's the last of a race of giants? Is this, like, we are getting into some Greek mythology stuff? Like, what is Paul Bunyan? What is the ox?
I don't know, look it up.
I don't think anyone's tried to make this conclusion before. You're going to look up what is Paul Bunyan. It's going to be like a giant man in American folklore. It's like, yes, I know that. I'm trying to connect him to other stuff. Is there a race of giants in the world of Paul Bunyan that he's just a member of? Where did he come from?
I don't know.
Is he a weird aberration? Did he, like... What
do you think?
Who's his mom? Who birthed him?
I don't know. You're looking into the scientific part of it, and there's no need to it.
I just want to pull that apart. I just want to pick that apart. I think it's important to, like, where's Mr. and Mrs. Paul Bunyan that created Paul Bunyan?
The stork dropped them off.
That's supposed to be a big effing stork. That's not a stork. That's the eagle from Lord of the Rings.
That's not a bird. That's a pterodactyl.
Exactly. So speaking of pterodactyls are part of wildlife, and the wildlife apparently love Johnny Appleseed. This was my favorite part of Johnny Appleseed, which was honestly for me the most like, okay, cool, we're doing this. Of the four stories, I won't say the most boring of the four, but it was get off the table.
What are you doing? Get off the table.
The dog's slamming on the coffee table. Just the most sort of blasé of the four. I
mean, yes, but no. Like I didn't mind the Johnny Appleseed episode. It was very laid back and.
The episode.
I mean, segment.
Stop. Pay attention.
I am paying attention.
No, you're playing with a letter opener.
I had something under my nails.
Gross. But leave this thing alone. It's broken. The entertaining part of Johnny Appleseed for me was his interactions with the animals and the
Oh
animals'
yeah,
interactions with him when they
male
first
version of Snow White.
well, not even just like when they first come across him and they're like, what are we gonna do with him? Uh, that and when he, apparently him liking the skunk is enough for all the other animals to like him. This is another one where it's like, okay, so animals are just like they all live together in a society now. They just like vibe together. Uh, I don't know. That was the one part that sticks out at me is like, yeah, that gave me a giggle. Just everyone's reaction to him.
I mean, also like when the what would you say the pillagers came and like they were enjoying all his food, like the trees and like the scene where they would you call them pilgrims?
The
Could you call them pilgrims? Like they're
the people going west, the pioneers,
the pioneers when they all stopped and was enjoying Johnny's apple trees.
well, that was really cool.
That was cool, but I wanted to point out the fact that all the animals were still with him and they were all grown up, like in the background.
Oh, were they? I didn't notice that they'd aged.
Because the original skunk was there with him when he was older. And then there was the bear, I think all the other animals that were with him when he originally planted the trees.
I didn't notice that they had all grown up. I just noticed, like, wasn't it like a chipmunk that went out there and was messing stuff up?
Yeah, there was a chipmunk that went with him, but he was walking through and there was an opening between the bushes and the trees, and you could see all the animals that was with him, and one of them was the skunk.
That's what I want to say. Comparing Johnny Appleseed to the other three stories, it was by far the most wholesome.
It was wholesome.
It was incredible. I mean, he's, an apple picker, or, he runs his orchard. His guardian angel appears to him and is like, hey, go out and do your thing. And has to convince him like 2 or 3 times. Which, get it together, Johnny Appleseed.
For real, bro. Just spread the message.
Spread the seed.
Spread your seed.
And he just goes and he plants all his apples, and you get good produce from them, and then his guardian angel appears to him and is like, it's time to go. And I actually really enjoyed the other part that was really entertaining when he, like, wakes up, turns around, and notices his body there. And he's
like, I'm not going. I can't be dead. I'm not going.
The angel has to explain to him, like, no, it's okay that you're dead. It's okay.
Yeah.
Like, it happens to everyone.
And then he gets them, and he was like, we need apple trees in heaven. Like, we have everything but apple trees. And I'm like, I thought to myself, and I was like, you live in heaven and you ain't got apple trees?
Hey, I mean, it would make sense that God wouldn't be a huge fan of apples after, what happened.
I mean, yeah.
Which, in fairness, nowhere does it say that it was an apple. It just specifies that it is like a fruit or something. It could have been any number of things. I'm not sure how many apples there were in, like, assuming that the entire Bible generally takes place, like Genesis and stuff, takes place in the same area that Jesus is from. I don't know how many apple trees were in the Middle East. That's actually an important question. What breeds of apple come from the Middle East?
I don't know.
Ask Johnny Appleseed. He seems like a guy that would know.
I mean, yeah, but like I don't know apples like
How
that.
do we summon Johnny Appleseed, considering he's like a spirit now?
Do we put apple seeds around a candle and just chant his name 3 times? Is that what this is?
We put apples in a like a pentagram.
And just
you make a Ouija board out of apple tree wood.
My brain hurts from you saying that. But okay, we digress.
The little, what do you call the thing that you put your hands on to move the Ouija board? I don't know, like the puck or something. I don't know what it's called. Yeah, the piece that you put your hands on and move around.
I think it's I think it's called the seeing eye or something. I don't know.
Okay, we're gonna call it the puck. You make that out of like an apple slice.
Or out of like cored apples.
I was gonna say an apple core, but I feel like it wouldn't slide around as well. It's
well,
like a slice of an apple.
You probably could make it like like resin it make it out of like apples, and use if you use like resin and you like take all the apple pieces and you like shred it up and you dip it in the epoxy and like you just shape it in a
So
mold.
like one of those blocks of soap with the shreds of stuff in it, except it's a block of epoxy with bits of apple in it.
Yeah.
I don't know how that would hold up.
No, like you.
Then again, I guess you only need it if you're just using it to summon Johnny Appleseed. You don't need it to last very long.
Not like a block of it. Like you put it in a mold and it's got like the apple pieces in it and like you sand it down to make it look cool.
How is that not just a block of it?
No, people make things out of epoxy all the time.
Okay, a block of epoxy. I think we're talking about the same thing.
Maybe, I don't know.
Anyway.
But let's move on. We digress.
We have to do, do we want to talk about Casey Jones at all? I sort of did my Casey Jones rant.
I didn't like it that much. I mean, I enjoyed it, but like...
It was definitely the funniest. It was the funniest funny. Of the four.
And I was like, oh, is this what everybody was talking about in Discord, Casey Jones? And you were like, yeah, this is Casey Jones. And I was like oh, okay.
Yeah, and then you went, is this like his story? And I was like, no, not at all. It's not even close.
This is the kids' version. This is the kids' version. This is the rated G version for everybody.
It's like if you took the impeachment of Bill Clinton and made it about, like, him spilling something on the desk or something. Like messing up the Resolute desk or something.
Okay. Sure.
It's, making the G-rated version of something and then drawing that story out to be wildly different than reality.
Okay. So, do you want to jump into star ratings?
I want to jump into writing a children's book based on the impeachment of Bill Clinton.
No. You've been watching too much Who's Line. So,
oh my god, yeah, no, it's true, we have. I need to write these down. Let me get over to the list. You think about your numbers.
So, I'm going to give it a 4.5, 4.5.
Okay.
Because,
because you love it. It's your childhood.
I love it. It's my childhood, exactly. And if I could watch this over and over and over and over and over again, I would.
Well, guess what?
I can!
We own it now.
Woo!
I spent money on this.
It wasn't that expensive anyways.
No, but, it's still less than the amount that you spent of my money on your gift for me.
Okay, shush.
Can I use... I said you could use my Amazon Prime.
I forgot, okay? Jesus. You give your star rating.
Okay, I'm going to give it 4. I'm going to give it 4. I was thoroughly entertained by it. I was a little bit put off by Casey Jones, like I said. And Johnny Appleseed was okay. But otherwise, Paul Bunyan is cool. And honestly, I think John Henry is making it up. John Henry is like 6 stars out of 5. Over here, which is dragging the average up for all the other stories. I should probably be rating it lower. I don't know why I gave it a 4. I should give it like a 3.5. But I wrote down 4. It's staying 4. I think that the best thing that that Paul Bunyan has going for it, just total aside because I needed to say this, is that it's got.
Sorry.
Wow. It's got by far the catchiest song of the 4.
Hey, Paul.
Hey, Paul.
Paul Bunyan.
It's so good, and it's been stuck in my head since we watched it.
You know what I love? I love the opening scene to John Henry where it's the quilt pieces.
Yes.
And I just love that, all the vibrant colors and just how they can storyboard that, how everything just falls together, and it's just fantastic, and I loved that opening scene so much.
John Henry was a very pretty one. That much is true, and I think that is the major difference almost with the more modern techniques, whatever they may have been that were employed.
You know what's funny is when I went to go look up John Henry, you know what popped up? A Terry Crews movie.
Oh, hell yeah. And I was like, we should watch that one instead.
No.
We need to watch, watch Jungle Cruise. We need to do an episode on African Queen and then watch Jungle Cruise.
Nah.
Come on.
Nah.
Come on.
Nah.
Can you smell what The Rock is cooking?
Oh my god, I can smell what The Rock is cooking, and it smells like depression.
You know what? I just made me think of the meme where it's The Rock in the 4 different movies, and he looks identical, like wearing the same outfit.
Yeah.
I think one of those is Journey to the Center of the Earth. I own that movie. It's in the movie case over
Who
there.
hasn't seen Journey to the Center of the Earth?
It's not a good movie, but it's pretty entertaining.
I mean, The Rock's funny, yeah.
Yeah, which is why we should watch Jungle Cruise.
Nah.
And Madagascar. We should watch Madagascar. That's a different story. Jumanji.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell the people what's next? What we're watching next?
What are we? That's right. I did say that we should watch The Dead Don't Die next, but I'm sort of torn between that and Rogue One because you need to see Rogue One, and tying it in, James Earl Jones, voice of Darth Vader, Rogue One, Star Wars. There's a thread here. I think that Paul Bunyan is a Jedi.
Okay, sure.
Anyway.
Bye, guys. See you next Sunday. Hey, babe. You want to watch a movie?
Okay, simp.